Hello and welcome to another video from the only source of information that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today I'm going to talk about hurricane relief because that's a big issue with the conspiracy theorists or the people who are there, the people who hate Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And from my own experience, because I live a mile from the beach, I've been through quite a few hurricanes, including Katrina. In fact, this house had 2 feet of water inside, and the house is 2 feet off the ground. So we had 4 feet right here. And since my property has dips and hills, there's probably areas on my property that were 8 feet underwater. But with Katrina, it was so huge that it took a while for anything to happen. And there were a lot of people complaining, the government's not doing anything. And, just like now, right now, everybody's complaining that Florida's not getting any relief. But the stories they're telling out of Florida are a little bit different than the stories that were coming out of people here in Mississippi back when Katrina hit. So, since every natural disaster is different, I couldn't make excuses for FEMA. 'Cause I'm a reasonable man. I understand you can't just make it go away. But we had, there was no infrastructure here at all. And when I say infrastructure, I mean there was no fuel anywhere, no food, no water, nothing. And there were no roads to bring those items in because a lot of our highways just got completely wiped out. Highway 90, which goes down the beach, was the road. It wasn't just the road that was gone, it was even the land that the road was on. So we had a highway, and then 400 feet, 300 feet of sand beach on the other side of the highway. Well, the sand beach was gone. There's just a hole there, and the road was gone, and then the dirt under the road was gone. I mean, it was like big craters or like a cliff. You would get to where the road used to be, and there would just be a cliff. And they were able to eventually get it to where we could drive around by connecting the southbound lane or the eastbound lane with the westbound lane. So you would go down the road until there was a big old cliff, and then they'd have a place where you could drive to get to the other piece where it was okay, and then you drive that for a few hundred feet, and it cross over onto the other lane again. So there was this problem of, before you could bring supplies in, you had to create the infrastructure to bring the supplies in. And I had been through a bunch of hurricanes, and I wanted to make sure that I could get back and forth between my parents' house, and I only had enough gas to go about 200 miles. I thought, well, I'll go top it off somewhere. I'm just that ignorant about how bad this disaster was. I ended up driving till my fuel gauge was on empty. And some people that I knew lived in the area. It was like 200 miles I drove. These people that I knew lived in that area. I drove to their house. I said, look, I don't know what to do. I have no gas. I can't drive back home because I'm on empty. And they let us stay overnight there. And then they called around. They found a gas station up there that did have gas. I got gas, but it's like my tank would hold about enough to go 300 miles. So by the time I got home, I actually had less gas than when I left. And that was a 2-day odyssey of, torturous odyssey, because I just didn't realize how bad things were. And a lot of people, they don't really care. My dad was calling. We had, even the cell towers were all down, and there was no electricity to charge your phone or anything. But when I would go to my dad's, I would hook the phone up to the car, and as I was driving, it was charging the phone. I got there, my dad wasted every penny worth of phone service that I had, all the electricity and everything in my phone, calling the cable company complaining that he didn't have cable. He didn't have electricity, he didn't have nothing. But he had a generator running, and he could turn his TV on, but all he could get was the local channel, which was running on about a 10-minute loop. So it was the same story. Guy, you know, oh, this is what the coast looks like, and FEMA's on the way, and then it would start over, oh, this is what the coast, and that was running all the time off of his generator because he had no cable. But, you know, that's how unreasonable people are. There's like dead bodies all around us, and my dad is threatening someone's job because they don't have cable to his house. And that was shocking to me. I mean, my dad, just a regular guy, so he's just as irrational as everybody else. But another problem that people have, and they've always had, is that hurricanes, fires, other disasters are a one-time deal. And because of the nature of it, a lot of money gets thrown out at once. Like, here's $10 billion, fix Florida. So when there's a bank account somewhere with $10 billion in it to fix Florida, all the high-ranking politicians want part of that money for themselves because they know they can sneak it out without getting in trouble. All they have to do is create some kind of nonsensical excuse, and then they get to take as much money as they want. Now, when we went through Katrina, it wasn't Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, it was George Bush Jr. And, you know, truckers, when a natural disaster hits, they're doing everything in their power to get out of their regular contracts because FEMA pays about double what top money is for commercial. So, you know, if you're taking furniture from one state to another, the cost or the rate per mile that they get paid is only half of what FEMA will pay per mile. And truckers want to go as many miles like that as they can. Well, one of my friends who was in the Navy with me got out and bought a truck. He became an independent trucker. Well, when I talked to him years after Katrina, I told him that I lived where Katrina was because we hadn't talked for years. And he said, you know, I make more money driving for natural disasters than I ever do for anything else. And when Katrina hit, I went and picked up food supplies and was able to pay off my truck. And anyway, I was talking to him, and he said, you know, there was one thing about that which was very, very inefficient. They said that what he said he was bringing was water, and the water had to be inspected before it could be delivered. Like, well, you know, what? Don't they inspect the water when they're filling the bottles? I mean, what are you talking about? I said, no, they said we had to go to Kennebunkport, Maine to see the water inspectors. So they drove from, I don't know, Texas or somewhere like that, all the way up to Kennebunkport, Maine, and he was told to park. He stayed there overnight, and in the morning they said, okay, you're good to go. Now, here's the thing about that. When they seal the trucks, you know, they have these little metal seals with a number on it. They log it in. So the only way to get in his truck is to cut that seal, which can't be cut unless he's there because he has to reseal it and log it in. He said he drove all the way to Kennebunkport, Maine. They never cut the seal. They never woke him up to cut the seal. When he left Kennebunkport, Maine, the truck still had the same seal on it that was on it when he left Texas or wherever he came from. I don't remember where he came from. But we're talking about going all the way across country to sit in Kennebunkport, Maine overnight and then bring the supplies back to Mississippi. And yeah, it was Texas, because he was telling me it's like it wasn't even a day trip to go from Texas to Mississippi. But he spent days on the road driving this load to Maine and back down here. If you don't remember, the Bushes, the people in charge, the President of the United States at the time, had family in Kennebunkport, Maine. That's where the George Bush Sr. lived. The whole thing was they brought it up there, and a huge chunk of the money that was spent per load on truck went to whoever was in Kennebunkport, Maine for no reason. So not only were the truckers making more money than ever, but money on top of that had to be given to George Bush Sr. for some reason. And they're all like that. You know, if you look at how much money the presidents and congressmen and such get paid, if they go in there for 4 years, you can take and multiply whatever they get per year by 4, and that should be the maximum amount of money they can have in the bank. But people who are in Congress, people who are presidents, vice presidents, secretary of state, those people making $1 million at the end of their term will have $20 million in their bank account. So they're all crooks. I mean, this is, and remember, Biden-Harris, that's the Democrats. The Bushes were Republicans, so it's not like one party doing this. Now, it could be argued that since Trump, and this is an argument they're making, Trump is already rich. He doesn't care about money anymore. He makes more money a day on interest than he could ever make being a crook in politics. But, and that may or may not be true because you can't really prove it until after the fact. And even then, no one's going to talk about it, so you don't know. These people don't let their left hand know what the right hand is doing, and you can believe they don't let us know what they're doing. So, are the stories about FEMA true? Some of the stories out there are pretty horrific. There is a trucker who says that FEMA is not hiring anyone to ship anything anywhere. And another military guy was saying that they loaded up one of those, which one is it, the Galaxy or the big C-130s, completely loaded with hurricane supplies. Kamala Harris came and did a photo op. They took video of her walking around and looking at it and saying, yeah, let's get this to help those people. And then they just unloaded the plane. They said the whole thing was just set up for a photo op. That's the only plane that's been loaded, and they unloaded it right there where they loaded it. So if these stories are true, yeah, this is probably worse than what I went through with Katrina. But at the same time, you never know. You never know who's telling the truth and who's lying. And we're going through a time of political unrest unlike anything that this country has ever been through before. And the people who hate Republicans are saying every kind of harmful lie that they can about Republicans. And you can believe the people on the other team are no more ethical than the people on that team. So it would be really easy to take sides. In fact, when I first started hearing these stories, I was like, oh my God, this is, these Democrats are horrible. But that's what the media is for. That's what the internet is now for, is to get people to take sides and stuff. And even as who I am, the guy that tells you not to take sides, I'm affected by this stuff. So I understand that everyone else is probably being affected by it too. The only difference I have is that once I get through the emotional part, I sit back and try to come up with a reasonable explanation for why this stuff is going on, whereas most people don't. Most people just react. So I'm hoping and praying that those of you who are like me, love God, and crave the day when Jesus Christ rules the world, I'm praying that you won't get caught up in choosing who rules the world now. Satan rules the world. That's not going to change. You can vote how you want. You can engage in some kind of armed uprising. The fact is, if you kill all of the politicians, Satan will just pick some more. All right, well, that's it. I love y'all. I hope you're not taking sides in this war. We're about to enter a war, a civil war in this country. There's no way around it. And it would be really, really easy to participate in that because I have a feeling that whether or not the military is involved, whether the states split up, whatever happens, the war is going to be right here. So it would be real easy to take your hunting rifle and just participate. Not a good idea. When God said in his Bible, you can choose life or you can choose death, choosing sides is the same thing as choosing death. Love y'all. As always, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.